Got hoops tonight at Chase Center. Milwaukee Bucks in town. We'll find out about Giannis, whether he's playing or not. I saw an interesting little tidbit. He hasn't missed consecutive games all year.
Wow.
So I think he's listed as questionable. So we'll see whether Giannis plays tonight. On the other, and no Chris Middleton. On the other hand, we got the Warriors, who are completely healthy for the first time since late November. Nobody's on the injury report.
Damn.
As we enter March. So that's good news. We got Andrew Wiggins coming back. Steve Kerr said he'll be in the starting lineup. And so for right now, Goo, right here, Warriors coming off a road trip. One win tonight puts Boston behind him. How you feeling about the Dubs?
I'm feeling good, Steiny, and I'm feeling good because I'm playing the schedule game. And I know we talked about the 3-1 road trip, but these next 4 games, to me, at minimum, you should be able to get 3. And I just told Butch and Bonte, I popped on with them, Steiny, that I know you run a race and you don't look back or you just focus on your stride and what you're doing. But I can't ignore what's happening in the Western Conference with Dallas, Sacramento. Now, they all can get their act together, but right now, I just feel like if this Warrior team, and Steiny, I know yesterday we talked about the impact of Wiggins coming back. You can't tell me that this may give them a jolt, more of a jolt than they already had. But now I'm looking at maybe 7th or 8th where you play in that playing game and you get a 9th life instead of 9 or 10. I'm like, man, if they continue to play good, sound, fundamental basketball, I mean, is 6 off the table? I don't know, but now I'm starting to sniff around like maybe it's possible.
Let me look at the standings because I haven't looked at the
Dallas,
standings.
I don't know what's going on with them. Sacramento.
Phoenix is still 3 ahead of the Warriors.
That was a big ass.
And the Pelicans are 4 up. You know, the one thing, you know what, and that's the one thing I've noticed is sometimes when you play the schedule game, you know, you're thinking, okay, Denver's going to go beat Phoenix. And then Phoenix goes and beats Denver. And then you realize that's what's held the Warriors back, is that they don't have enough wins like that against good teams.
What was their record?
7-23.
Man.
Now, Milwaukee win would make them 8-23 against the types of teams that I talked about. But, you know, I don't know whether do we like to play in? How are we on the play-in 3 or 4 years later?
I don't like it.
How come? Because I don't have a strong opinion. Well, before you answer,
all right, because I got 2 things off the top.
The one thing I'd like to know, and it's probably easy to find out, is the records of teams in the play-in games from the position they were in. In other words, to my way of thinking, there is a monster difference between 7 and 10. If you finish 7, you're guaranteed 2 home play-in games. You got 1 win. You got to get 1 win in 2 home games.
All right.
You're 10th. You got to win 2 games on the road. So I do think it's imperative that the Warriors at least get up to 9 so that if they have to play the Lakers, that game's in San Francisco.
Wow.
I really do think, and if the Warriors finish 10th, like the way it would be right now is the Warriors may have to beat the Lakers in LA, then fly to Dallas, beat Dallas in Dallas, and then they got to go right to play a first-round series against a top 3 seed. Or top 3 seed.
And I still got nightmares when they lost to Memphis at home, and they blew that game before that loss that Friday night to the Lakers and LeBron. But you asked me a question.
Yeah.
I don't like to play in because I believe the top 8 should go. And the fact that these numbers, here I go, these sacred numbers don't count in the play-in, they count for nothing. That I don't like, Matt. And if people want to call and say, you know what, it's exciting, I don't like 9th and 10th seeds getting action at it. You're done. So now you take away from the regular season, I believe, when it used to be just the top 8. That's just me.
Well, this might not be the year for Warrior fans to hate the play.
Well, you know what? I changed my mind. You got me.
Although they're just a game behind Dallas right now.
And they play Dallas, is it twice or once? I think
I heard Bonte and Shasky talk about those teams. I had them all written down. Let me see. Yeah. I think they play. I don't know. I could just look. 888-957-9570 is the number. Andrew Wiggins is coming back. He's starting.
Yeah.
And one thing I wonder, the reason that tonight's game to me is going to be more interesting than most is because the Warriors are completely healthy. So what does that tell me? It tells me that what Steve Kerr does tonight is what he wants to do moving forward. He's got everybody available. So how does he use the rotation? Because he doesn't have to play one guy because another guy's out.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see the starters. I'm assuming Podziemski will be back in the starting lineup, along with Wiggins, Green, who am I missing?
Pods.
Kuminga.
Okay.
Kuminga and Steph. And I think, who's coming off the bench for sure? Klay Thompson and Chris Paul.
Yep.
Then where do we go?
And I'll tell you what.
Where do we go after that?
How far do you want to go, though, Steiny? Because Willard brought it up
Not
in the
far.
crossover yesterday. The playoff rotations shrink.
Yeah.
And he's right. You can't continue. And that's why, Steiny, I want Moses Moody on the court. But I just felt like the reality of when he goes back to where he's going back, not to get a DMP, but he's got to be, if you're going to go 9 or 10 in the playoffs, Moody should see some minutes.
I mean,
is Saric left out of the I gotta believe he's number one on my list. You know what? Your usage is going to go down in the playoffs. I could be wrong.
No, I think you're right.
It could be all predicated on matchups. I get that, but man, right now they are playing a lot, Steiny.
Well, the thing about Saric to me is you can only play him when Chris Paul's on the floor. I mean, you can play him without him, but for the most part, that's how and when you use him.
The most effective Saric.
Exactly. So do you take the Saric, I don't want to say weapon, but I mean, I would think Saric is probably going to be an odd man out. Moody's obviously going to be an odd man out. And I guess that's where I want to start the show. So Wiggins is back. He's starting. He's going to play 28. You pencil him in for 28 to 32 minutes. Maybe not right away tonight, but if he gets settled.
May finish, may not.
And then what's the biggest upside to Andrew Wiggins coming back? And then for Warrior fans, what would be a concern with Wiggins coming back? If you have one. You might not have one. So what would be the upside? What's the biggest upside to Wiggins coming back? And then if you have a concern about him coming back, what would that be? And I'll start.
Go ahead, because I got me.
I feel like the biggest upside for Wiggins returning is that they would get an upgrade at the 3 position, at that starting small forward position. If he can be consistent, then he will make them a better, if he can be consistent, he'll make them a better team because he's a better player than Moody at the 3.
Yeah, no question.
He's just more well-rounded. He's more experienced. He's more athletic. He's bigger. He's more of a capable defender when he's playing well. My biggest concern is, and when I said this to Evan, he was like, I don't really see that one. And I said, I get you. But it would be, and I know they played together before he got out, but it would be Kuminga. And the reason I say that is because I get it. Like, Wiggins probably won't take point A to point B minutes away from Kuminga because Kuminga's going to play.
Yes, sir.
But remember earlier this year when he said Wiggins and Kuminga were redundant at one point?
That was without Draymond Green.
It was without Draymond Green. But the one concern I'd have is that with a full roster, maybe Steve Kerr really, really starts relying on Steph, Klay, Wiggins, Kuminga, Draymond, Chris Paul II, and maybe even a Saric. I think the toughest thing for him to do is going to be, how do you keep Podziemski in there? And you know what? Maybe what we'll find is Podziemski may not be ready to play in April.
Right.
But I think Trace Jackson-Davis probably will get less minutes. I'm looking at the four young guys: Kuminga, Moody, Trace Jackson-Davis, and Podziemski. Like, I don't want to see them disappear because I think the risk of that is too big. To me, the worst way to end this season would be to rely on a lot of those players that got the Warriors to where they got 2 years ago, but they don't make it out of the play-in or something like that. And now you're sitting there and you say, man, we didn't even make it out of the play-in, and our young guys didn't play a lot the last 6 weeks of the season. That would be a not so good ending.
You know what? I'm not mad at that. And the beautiful thing about the game of basketball, Steiny, shout out Naismith, is we'll be able to tell. We'll be able to tell if guys, speaking of the youngsters, might be overwhelmed or the stage might be too bright. But it's not all doom and gloom if some guys are not ready to meet that moment.
True.
And that's why you can, GP2 is going to be big. I'm going to shock you here.
Yep.
I think TJD will get the opportunity to maybe get 10 to 13 minutes in a playoff game. I could be totally wrong, but it's up to him on how he shows Steve Kerr he can handle it. Also, pods defensively, our team's gonna try to go at him, if he were to start game 2 or game 3. So I'm all on board, but I think Steve Kerr, Steiny, with 22 games left, he has to condense this rotation. And then I've said this to you guys a while back, if it is truly a strength in numbers, a different version, then nothing is etched in stone. Every game is its own entity. Every game has its own matchups, and you can pick and choose and match up differently. And that's the beautiful thing about a team. Tonight might not be your night, Steiny, but guess what? 2 days from now, game 2, we might need you. And the more you have at your disposal of, again, because this is where I'm operating from, it's like a good bottle of cologne. I am operating and hoping for this Warrior team on a good bottle of hope. That's what I'm doing at the 10th seed right now, that I hope Andrew Wiggins can tap in and get close to what he was in 22. I hope Pods can play the playoffs and act like and be the Pods and rebound like he was in the regular season. GP2, Chris Paul,